He forgot our anniversary. So I let him discover the real surprise I'd been planning. Let's just say, he'll never forget another date again. I used to believe anniversaries were sacred. The day you stop even for a moment and remember why you chose each other in the first place. But apparently for my husband Ethan, anniversaries were just another date on the calendar, easily forgotten between work meetings and golf weekends. The day started like any other. I woke up early, made him coffee, black with 1 sugar, and set out the small breakfast I knew he liked. Toast, eggs and avocado. I even wore the silk robe he once said made me look like something out of his dreams. I was smiling when I came into the kitchen, ready to greet him with a soft, "Happy anniversary, honey." He barely looked up from his phone. "Morning," he muttered, scrolling, thumbs flying across the screen. No mention of the date. No warmth. His routine. I waited for a beat, thinking maybe he was playing it cool. Maybe he had some surprise planned. We'd been married 7 years, and though things had been distant lately, I still believed there was a part of him that cared. But then he asked, "Did you pay the water bill this month?" "No, happy anniversary." No kiss. Just bills. That's when something in me cracked. I smiled, keeping my tone even. "Yeah, it's taken care of." He didn't even notice the disappointment behind my words. He just nodded, finished his toast and grabbed his jacket. "I've got a long day today. Don't wait up, I might grab drinks with the guys." With the guys. On our anniversary. I stood by the window as he left, my fingers wrapped tightly around my coffee mug. The silence that filled the house felt heavier than usual. It was the kind of silence that made you realize just how much love had already drained out of a home. But what he didn't know was that I had already sensed this coming. The distance, the disinterest. For months, I'd been watching him grow colder, detached. I wasn't stupid. I'd seen the late texts, the random nights working late. So, while he was busy forgetting our anniversary, I'd been busy planning something else. That day, I went to work like normal. I'm a graphic designer, mostly remote, but my mind wasn't on my projects. It was on the small safe in my office closet and what was inside it. Inside was a flash drive. A drive filled with screenshots, photos, and voice messages, things I'd collected quietly over the last 3 months. Evidence that my loving husband, Ethan, wasn't as faithful or as busy as he liked to pretend. But today wasn't about confrontation. Not yet. Today was about execution. Because what Ethan didn't realize was that I had planned something special for our anniversary too, something he'd never forget. That evening he didn't come home until almost midnight. He smelled faintly of cologne and whiskey, his tie loose around his neck. He didn't even apologize for being late. "Rough day," he said, sinking into the couch. "You okay?" I smiled sweetly. "Of course. Just tired." I walked over, leaned down and kissed his cheek. "Happy anniversary, Ethan." He froze. "Oh, right. Babe, I held up my hand. "It's fine. Really." I smiled again, but this time it wasn't warmth behind it. It was calculation. "You'll make it up to me, I'm sure." He visibly relaxed, relieved that I wasn't making it into a big thing. That was mistake number 1. Because while he slept soundly that night, my laptop was already sending emails. To certain people. With certain attachments. I went to bed next to him, pretending to be asleep. My heart was racing. Not from sadness anymore, but from anticipation. Tomorrow morning, Ethan's world would look very different. The next morning, the sun was barely up when Ethan's phone started buzzing non-stop. At first he ignored it, groaning and rolling over. But when the notifications didn't stop, he finally grabbed it, and I watched the color drain from his face. "Jesus Christ," he muttered, scrolling fast. "What the hell?" He jumped out of bed, still half asleep, and stormed into the bathroom. I could hear the sound of his messages pinging one after another. My heart beat calmly as I took a sip of coffee, sitting by the window again, the same spot where I had watched him walk away the day before. I knew exactly what was happening, because I had timed everything perfectly. The emails had gone out at 6 a.m. sharp. One to his boss, one to his company's HR department, and another to a certain woman named Camilla. Camilla, the coworker he had been mentoring. Camilla, whose voice I had heard on one of his late-night voicemails, whispering, "Can't wait for next weekend." The attachments I sent weren't explicit. I didn't need them to be. They were subtle. Screenshots of texts, calendar invites, and one damning photo of the two of them at a hotel bar, her hand on his knee, time-stamped during a supposed conference. Enough to raise questions. Enough to burn bridges. I'd also sent a separate email, to myself, containing a copy of everything. I wasn't stupid. I knew Ethan's temper, and I knew once this started he'd try to turn the narrative on me. But this wasn't just about revenge. It was about clarity. I wanted him to feel what I had felt. Small, embarrassed, disposable. And most of all, I wanted him to know that he had underestimated me. By the time he came out of the bathroom, his phone was still buzzing. His face was pale, his jaw tight. Did you see my email?" he asked, voice low, uncertain. I looked up, playing innocent. "No, why?" He hesitated, searching my expression. Someone sent some photos. Of me. And Camilla." He swallowed. "You didn't?" I tilted my head. "You and Camilla?" He froze. The silence stretched between us like a blade. I let it sit there, twisting slowly. "Ethan," I said softly, "if you're about to tell me you were cheating on me on our anniversary, no less, I think you should really consider your next words carefully." He opened his mouth, then closed it again. "It's not what it looks like." I laughed. The sound surprised even me, light, cold, sharp. "Do you even hear yourself? That line is older than our marriage." He took a step forward, his voice rising. "You've been going through my stuff? Spying on me?" I stood up, calm as ever. "You've been lying to me. There's a difference." He grabbed his jacket, muttering, "I need to fix this. I need to talk to HR." I watched him storm out, slamming the door behind him. My pulse quickened, not with fear but satisfaction. He had no idea what was waiting for him at work. Because one of the emails I sent wasn't just to HR. It was to his company's board of directors. Ethan worked in finance. And mixing business with personal pleasure was a big no-no in his field. That afternoon, while I worked quietly from home, the pieces began to move exactly as I'd predicted. He called me 5 times. I didn't answer. He texted me once, "We need to talk. Don't make this worse. Don't make this worse." As if I had been the one who had wrecked everything. By 5 p.m. a mutual friend, Lauren, texted me. "Are you okay? I heard Ethan had some kind of HR meeting today." He looked destroyed. I smiled slightly at the message, typing back, "I'm fine. He's just learning actions have consequences." Still, the satisfaction was bittersweet. Revenge never fills the void it uncovers. That night I sat in silence, scrolling through old photos, vacations, anniversaries, laughter. There was once real love between us. Or at least I thought there was. But as I looked closer, I noticed something in those pictures. A pattern. I was always looking at him. He was always looking at something else. When he finally came home, he looked like a man whose life had been hit by a truck. His shirt was wrinkled, his tie gone, his eyes hollow. "You ruined me," he said quietly. I set my wine glass down. "No, Ethan. You did that all by yourself." He stared at me for a long time. "I made a mistake." "You made many," I corrected him. He sighed, rubbing his temples. "They've suspended me pending investigation. HR's going through my emails. I could lose my job." I shrugged. "Maybe now you'll have time to remember anniversaries." He glared at me, but I didn't flinch. That used to scare me, his quiet, seething anger. Not anymore. Not when I finally had the upper hand. He turned and walked toward the guest room, slamming the door behind him. I sat there in the living room, the sound of the door echoing through the empty house, and for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt something close to peace. Because the plan wasn't done yet. And the next phase would make him wish he had never forgotten that anniversary in the first place. The next morning I woke up before dawn again. The house was quiet, the kind of eerie silence that makes you aware of every sound. The hum of the fridge, the ticking clock, the faint shuffle of movement in the guest room. Ethan hadn't left for work. Not that he had anywhere to go now. I heard him moving around, probably making frantic phone calls to salvage whatever was left of his career. A small part of me wondered if he'd learned anything. The bigger part of me didn't care. I opened my laptop, sipping coffee as the final piece of my plan came together. The documents were ready, all the ones I'd gathered over the past year. Tax records, loan papers, investment accounts, the silent transfer of funds he thought I hadn't noticed. Ethan had been siphoning small amounts from our joint account into one labeled under business expenses. At first I thought maybe it was for something innocent. A project, a client fund. But then I realized, it was to pay for her. The hotel stays. The business trips. Even the expensive bracelet that had mysteriously vanished after Christmas. I had every receipt, every transaction, and now, I had proof of financial misconduct. See, Ethan didn't just cheat on me. He cheated his company too. I had been patient, painfully so, waiting for the right moment to expose it all. And that moment was now. Before sending the final email, I hesitated, staring at the send button. My hand trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the gravity of what I was about to do. This would destroy him completely. No coming back. Then I remembered his words, the ones he said last year when I asked if he'd ever leave me. He laughed, dismissive, and said, "Leave you? You wouldn't survive without me. I clicked send. By the time he came downstairs, disheveled and pale, I had already forwarded everything. To his company's legal department, to their auditors, and to my attorney. Morning, I said calmly, stirring my coffee. He froze when he saw me. What did you do? I smiled faintly. You mean this morning? Or over the last few months? He slammed his hands on the table, eyes bloodshot. You're trying to ruin me. No, I said evenly. I'm just revealing the truth. What you did ruined you. He stared at me, breathing hard, trying to figure out how much I knew. You went through my files, didn't you? Your files. I tilted my head. You mean our joint financial accounts? The ones you used to fund your little adventures. His face went slack. Yeah, I continued. You were sloppy. You forgot that I'm not the naive woman you married. I saw every transfer. Every receipt. Every reservation in your name. He sank into a chair, running a hand over his face. You could have just confronted me. I did, I said softly. You lied. He looked up at me then, eyes dark with something between anger and despair. So what now, huh? You want to gloat? Watch me lose everything. No, I said. I want you to understand. He frowned. Understand what? That love isn't unconditional when it's built on betrayal. For the next few hours he barely moved. He sat at the kitchen table staring at his phone, watching his life implode in real time. I didn't say a word. Every ping of a new message, every heavy sigh, was its own form of justice. Around noon he finally stood up and said quietly, I'm going out. I didn't ask where. I didn't care. When he left, I walked upstairs to my bedroom and opened the closet. The suitcase I'd packed 2 nights ago was still there, zipped and ready. Inside were my essentials, my passport, and the signed divorce papers I'd had prepared months earlier, waiting for the day he'd push me too far. I didn't need to stay in this house anymore. It was filled with ghosts, laughter that had turned to shouting, warmth that had frozen over. As I walked through each room, memories flashed in fragments. Our first dance in the living room, the anniversary dinner where he had actually remembered, the day he promised, it's you and me against the world. And then the silence that followed every broken promise. Before I left, I placed a small white envelope on the kitchen counter. On the front, in calm handwriting, I wrote, For when you're ready to be honest. Inside was a photo, our wedding day, and a short note. You forgot what love was supposed to mean. I just remembered. I drove away with the windows down, the cool air rushing in, the weight of years lifting from my chest. The next few weeks passed like a blur. I moved into a small apartment downtown, started a new job at a marketing firm, and finally began sleeping through the night. Ethan tried reaching out a few times, emails, voicemails, even showing up once outside my office, but I never responded. Then one morning I saw the headline online. Local financial executive resigns amid internal investigation. There was no photo, but I didn't need one. I knew it was him. Months later, I found myself sitting at a cafe, sipping coffee while watching the rain. A stranger at the next table smiled at me, a kind smile, the kind I hadn't seen in years. He asked if the seat was taken, and for the first time I didn't hesitate to say no. We talked about books, travel, favorite movies. It felt easy, light. When he asked about my past, I just smiled and said, it taught me everything I needed to know about beginnings and endings. He didn't press for more. As I walked home that night, I thought about Ethan, about how much I had changed since the day he forgot our anniversary. How that one moment of neglect had unraveled everything, but in the most unexpected way had set me free. Sometimes the people who break you are the same ones who teach you how to rebuild. And as I stood at my apartment window watching the city lights shimmer against the dark sky, I whispered to myself, Happy anniversary, Emma. You made it. A year can change everything. When I looked back, it almost felt like that version of me. The woman waiting for a husband who never showed up, sitting alone at a candlelit table with a cold dinner, had belonged to someone else entirely. I had rebuilt myself piece by piece, not overnight but with quiet persistence. I'd moved into a cozy apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city skyline. Every morning, sunlight streamed in, warm and golden, like a reminder that life could be beautiful again. I'd taken up running, adopted a rescue cat named Luna, and started painting, something I hadn't done since college. And work? Well, I was thriving. My new firm valued me. They saw my talent, my leadership, and my ideas. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small or overlooked. But as much as I tried to move forward, there were still moments, quiet ones when the city was asleep, where the echoes of Ethan's voice crept back in. His laugh, his promises, his betrayal. Healing isn't linear, they say, and they're right. Some days I was unstoppable. Other days I still missed the person I thought he was. That's why, when I saw his name flash on my phone that Friday night, Ethan calling, I froze. At first I thought it was a mistake. Then came the message. I just want to talk. Please. My chest tightened. I hadn't heard from him in months. After the investigation, he'd resigned quietly, his reputation in shambles. From what mutual friends said, he'd been struggling, jobless, lonely, drinking too much. I'd blocked his number back then, but somehow he'd found a new way to reach me. I stared at the message for a long time, fingers hovering over the screen. Every instinct screamed to ignore it. But another part of me, the one that needed closure, whispered you deserve to hear it. So I replied. Tomorrow. Noon. Café Amara. The next day was gray, the kind of winter morning that carries the smell of rain. I arrived early, choosing a corner seat near the window. My reflection in the glass looked calm, more composed than I felt. I was no longer the woman he could manipulate. When Ethan walked in, I almost didn't recognize him. His once perfect suit was rumpled, his eyes tired, his confidence gone. He hesitated before approaching my table. Emma, he said quietly, sitting down. You look different. Better, I replied, my tone cool but not cruel. He winced. Yeah. You do. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The tension between us was thick, filled with unspoken words. Finally, he said, I wanted to see you. To say I'm sorry. I tilted my head. For what part exactly? The affair? The lies? Or the fact that you treated me like an accessory? He sighed, running a hand through his hair. All of it. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I lost everything, Emma. My job, my reputation, my friends. And I can't stop thinking about how much I hurt you. His voice cracked slightly, the sound of a man who finally realized the consequences of his own arrogance. You didn't just hurt me, Ethan, I said softly. You broke the life we built. You made me question myself, my worth. But here's the thing, I found it again. Without you. He nodded slowly, eyes glistening. I don't expect anything. I just needed to tell you that I was wrong. You were always more than enough. That sentence, more than enough, landed like a ghost from the past. It was what I had wanted to hear years ago. But now it didn't fill me. It didn't even hurt. This felt hollow. I leaned forward slightly. For the longest time I wondered if you'd ever feel sorry. If you'd ever understand how it felt to sit alone on our anniversary while you lied to my face. But I'm not that woman anymore. I don't need your apology to move on. He swallowed hard. So that's it. I smiled faintly. That's closure. We sat in silence for a moment longer. Then I stood up, slid my coat on, and picked up my coffee. Take care of yourself, Ethan. I hope someday you figure out why you keep destroying the things that love you. He didn't answer. I walked out of the cafe, the bell above the door chiming softly behind me. The air outside was crisp and cool, filled with the scent of rain-soaked pavement. As I walked, a lightness settled over me, a feeling I hadn't realized I was still chasing. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't triumph. It was peace. That night, back home, I sat by the window, Luna curled in my lap, city lights glittering in the distance. My phone buzzed. A message from Daniel, the man I'd been seeing for a few months. Dinner tomorrow? I found a new place you'll love. I smiled. Not the nervous, uncertain kind I used to have with Ethan, but a genuine one. The kind that comes when you finally know your worth. I'd love that, I replied. As I set my phone down, I looked at my reflection in the glass. Calm, confident, unbroken. The woman who once waited alone for a husband who forgot her now waited for no one. And as the city buzzed softly below, I whispered, here's to never being forgotten again.